November 11, 2017. US faces ruin as Putin-Trump unite in desperate bid to stop deep state global disaster. A grimly worded Ministry of Defense mod report circulating in the Kremlin today says that the President Putin-President Donald Trump joint statement English just released at the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC Vietnam 2017 summit warning that there is no military solution to the Syrian crisis is, in fact, a desperate action designed to stop a deep state-initiated global disaster from occurring, and one of whose first victims will be the American people, who are days away from seeing their gasoline prices skyrocket to over $8 per gallon, and that would place their entire economy in ruins. Note some words and/or phrases appearing in quotes in this report are English-language approximations of Russian words. Phrases having no exact counterpart. 3 hours prior to President Putin and President Trump issuing their joint statement, this report details, all of the leaders attending the APEC summit received an urgent communiqué from Steamship Mutual Underwriting Association Limited stating that it was preparing to suspend all maritime insurance activities throughout the entire Middle East region within 72 hours unless belligerent hostilities ceased between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Steamship Mutual Underwriting Association Limited, this report explains, is one of the largest protection and indemnity P&I clubs in the world, and who, since November 2016, provides maritime insurance for oil tankers originating from Iran, and if these oil shipments are ceased, Iran's largest customer China would suffer a disastrous blow to its economy, which would then cause China to begin competing on the international market for oil, creating a domino effect, skyrocketing the price of oil to over $200 a barrel from its present price of $57, and would translate into the American people having their cost per gallon of gasoline immediately rise to between $6.8 a gallon, which would, in turn, crush their economy too. With the Sunni Muslim Arab Gulf kingdoms of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and UAE all ordering all of their citizens to leave Shiite Muslim Arab country of Lebanon, this report notes, the stage is being set by the deep state to initiate a catastrophic war against the Shiite Persian nation of Iran, and that President Trump's Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, just hours ago warned against by stating America would not accept a proxy war being fought in Lebanon, but with Secretary of State Tillerson then reversing himself by ordering all foreign forces to immediately leave Lebanon, but without his stating who exactly these foreign forces were. In their urgent communiqué to APEC leaders, this report continues, Steamship Mutual Underwriting Association Limited cited such examples of American incoherent inconsistencies as being the major part of their threat, warning to suspend their coverage of oil tanker losses in the Middle East region, with their even questioning as to what President Trump was even control of, and as they example by noting that after Trump's Secretary of the U.S. Air Force, Heather Wilson, sent out a grave warning that they urgently needed nearly 2,000 pilots, Trump immediately responded by issuing an executive order authorizing her to recall up to 1,000 retired pilots for active duty called unretirement, but that deep state elements in the U.S. Air Force immediately responded to by saying that they would not obey Trump's executive order. These deep state elements within the U.S. Air Force disobeying direct orders issued by President Trump, this report says, include one of their main leaders named Lieutenant General Jeffrey Harrigan, who, just hours ago, shattered Trump's attempt for Middle East peace by shockingly stating, without offering evidence or proof, that the 4 November false flag missile shot at Saudi Arabia from supposed Houthi tribesmen in Yemen bore Iranian markings, which is an absurd claim to believe, as it would mean that Iran always makes sure it leaves identifying marks when it illegally sells its weapons to Houthi tribesmen in Yemen, but which, perhaps, they put a stamp on the side saying this ballistic missile was made in Iran, If found, please return to P.O. Box 666, Tehran. Not stopping at this false flag missile attack, either, to provoke a catastrophic Middle East war, this report continues, these deep state warmongers are ratcheting up their propaganda attacks too, and that in the past 24 hours include their preparing to blame an oil pipeline explosion in Bahrain on Hezbollah forces from Lebanon, Saudi Arabia claiming that Lebanon has kidnapped one of their citizens, and an outrageous claim being made that Iran is building a military base in Lebanon. To the hatred and vitriol coming against Lebanon from the deep state elements within Saudi Arabia, this report explains, is due to Hassan Nasrallah, the third and current Secretary General of the Lebanese political and paramilitary party Hezbollah, last July 2016 slamming the Saudis before the entire Arab Muslim world, both Sunni and Shiite, by his stating the truth that the culture of Saudi Arabia is Wahhabi culture, the culture of Daesh, ISIS and al-Nusra al-Qaeda. Even with a changed name, it's a culture of killing and slaughter and siege and rejection of dialogue. Hezbollah leader Nasrallah's slamming of Saudi Arabia, this report notes, was due to his paramilitary forces operating in Syria discovering the mass graves containing tens of thousands of Shiite Arab Muslim and Christian men, women and children who had all been tortured, beheaded and killed by the Saudi, Qatar and American-supported and funded radical Sunni Arab Muslim terrorists belonging to ISIS and al-Qaeda, and that has been designated as a genocide. While the West ignored this mass genocide of Christians and Shiite Arab Muslims, this report continues, Shiite Arab Hezbollah joined with Shiite Arab Syrian, Shiite Arab Iraqi and Persian Shiite Iranian forces, all of whom, under the protection of Russian air forces, began liberating hundreds of cities and villages in both Syria and Iraq from the despotic reign of these barbaric Sunni Arab Muslims belonging to ISIS and al-Qaeda, and whose final battles are being waged at this very hour in Rawa, Iraq and al-Bakamil, Syria, with al-Bakamil being the most fiercest battle due to its being the last refuge of ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. Important to note about Lebanon's Shiite Arab Hezbollah, aside from their battlefield victories in Syria, this report continues, is that in the aftermath of the 2006 Lebanon war, when they inflicted heavy losses on Israeli forces and declared divine victory, they became the first Arab army in history not to be fully defeated in a war with Israel, with today their having emerged as a regional military power not only active in Syria, but also Iraq, Yemen, Bahrain, and beyond, and who are arguably the most militarily capable non-state actor in history. The critical importance of knowing the massive military reach and power of Hezbollah, this report explains, is that when their leader Hassan Nasrallah declared just hours ago that Saudi Arabia had declared war on Lebanon, this grave statement invokes the entire Middle East as the battleground this conflict will be fought on, but only for a few days, as it will, without doubt, go global nearly once it begins. The deep state elements within Saudi Arabia, though, are starting this war, not Hezbollah, this report details, as the Saudis have, apparently, taken Lebanon's Prime Minister Saad al-Hariri, who holds dual Lebanese-Saudi citizenship, hostage and forced him to go on Saudi television and announce his resignation, and which under Lebanon's multi-party ruling coalition constitution, puts Hezbollah in de facto charge of the country, thus allowing the deep state and its allies to declare that Lebanon has now becoming a terror state. Also critically important to note about Hezbollah, this report continues, is that it follows the Iranian revolutionary concept of Wilayat al-Faqih, guardianship of the Islamic jurist, which is a doctrine formulated by Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini that holds that a Shiite Islamic cleric, in this case, the supreme leader of Iran, should serve as the supreme head of government and leader for Shiites worldwide, and that has instructed Hezbollah to suspend operations against Israel and begin targeting Saudi Arabia instead. As to why Iran would instruct Hezbollah to begin targeting Saudi Arabia, this report says, is due to Iranian intelligence linking the Saudis to terrorist plots targeting Iran, and who recently warned, "Our message to Saudis from today is if we get angry, we will leave no trace of Saudis on earth." With everything in this deep state-dictated war escalating by the hour, this report continues, President Trump admitted that these enemies of his are, indeed, harming his efforts for peace, but who, also, vowed to maintain the existing military communication channels to ensure the security of American and Russian armed forces in the Middle East as the explosion nears, with all hopes for peace now resting on Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who has put the entire Middle East on a collision course and whose most dangerous phase is now active after the arrest of Prince Bandar bin Sultan, who is the deep state's main operative in Saudi Arabia. To the American people, being allowed to know any of these true things as the fate of their nation, literally, hangs in the balance, this report concludes, is not to be seen as, once again, their deep state propaganda media is filling their minds with fake news, this time about a would-be President Trump ally running for the U.S. Senate, named Roy Moore, who, just 4 weeks before his election, is being accused of sexual abuses against young women, but with the American people not being allowed to know that one of Moore's accusers worked for Hillary Clinton, another has a past littered with making false sexual allegations against other men, and that the Washington Post reporter who wrote the article accusing Moore, has a long criminal history, and in the past offered to pay money to anyone accusing Moore of something.